You should go to London. That place in your head is now more real to you than anywhere else.
I am myself indifferent.
I am myself indifferent on it. Again.
Do you not wonder what is in it?
In what?
The play.
What shall I do?
Keep your heart open. Look.
To die. To sleep. Perchance to dream.
What do you see?
Why?
Bye.
Why?
Bye.
Why?
Hey, Jennifer Walden here for Mix's Award Season Event 2025. We're talking about director Chloe Zhao's Hamnet. And joining me are re-recording mixer, supervising sound editor, sound designer Johnnie Burn, composer Max Richter, and production sound mixer Rashad Hall-Heinz. Thanks for being here to talk about Hamnet.
Hey, Jennifer, thanks for having us.
Happy to. Director Chloe Zhao, wow. Okay, so my first experience with her was Nomadland, for which she won the Oscar for Best Director. And with that film, man, she proved that she is not afraid to use quiet, reflective moments in a film. So can you talk about the quiet moments in Hamnet? Like, what were some of the key sonic elements in this sparse yet highly curated selection of sounds that you used to support the emotion?
Is this one for me, do we think?
Maybe, yeah.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? I think, Chloe very much wanted to take Rashad's wonderful recordings and use those to be as close as possible to the characters. And it isn't technically silence. It's the absence of more information or superfluous details. And the closer the more you can hear the breath of the actor, and the more you can hear the crinkle of a bit of cloth or the tiny crunch of a footstep, the closer I think you feel to the vibrations that are really what's going on in a scene in this wonderfully, at times, still film. So yeah, it's kind of it's emotional silence into which we feel so much more closer to these people.
What are you doing?
And Rashad, let's talk about capturing these just incredibly emotional performances. What were some of the challenges that you had shooting on location, or what were some of the most challenging scenes that you had to capture?
The most challenging thing was aeroplanes everywhere. There were a lot of planes, and it's obviously a period film. So actually, interestingly, one of the first things we did was in the forest, and we were really hoping for it to be what you want from that location, which is just this incredible location, a site of scientific interest. So it's got this, as you will see in the film, these beautiful trees with this hole, and I was thinking, right, this is going to be, there's some birds here, but yeah, we were under a flight path, which is challenging. But you try to track the planes with an app, and you say, okay, now it's time, we can do it. But of course, that also needs to correspond with the time when everyone's ready and the actors are ready. And I was very aware that Jessie was going to do this incredible performance. Both of them were just, it was, and actually one of the very first things I remember, I started booming it myself. This is how Chloe wanted it. and I was standing listening and thinking, wow, this is amazing, this performance. Let's hope nothing spoils it. And so that's the challenge. I think actually it carried on through the whole of the shoot, the planes. So that's very, very difficult. But yeah, I think Johnny and his team must have had a look and a listen and tearing their hair out, but hopefully they got something from what we recorded. So yeah.
Yeah, every time a plane went over, we hit it with some scowling wind and made the leaves move a little bit more.
And I was saying to Chloe, well, maybe we can incorporate this somehow with some low rumbles, something to just help us. And Max, hopefully you, I don't know whether you could help there, with these things, because it's frustrating, because you definitely don't want to, there's a certain amount of performances you get. And Chloe was really economic with her shooting because she didn't want to do many angles, and so, yeah, you're very aware.
Yeah. Are you sort of, just from a technical standpoint, are you in a position where you can kind of, if there is an airplane, can you sort of RX it out, or is that just not a thing for you guys?
There's an amount of that you can do, yeah. And the real difficulty comes, people have a natural cadence where towards the end of a sentence, as the lungs empty, you get a bit quieter. And if there's very silent Fs and S's and breaths, you really lose the signal to noise ratio at that point, and it becomes very difficult. And you don't really want to ADR it, because getting an actor back 6 months later and saying, remember when you felt really, it doesn't really work. So yeah, you can. You're better off looking for another take and finding that bit that didn't have the aeroplane. Yeah, I saw young Jacoby Duke last night, the young boy Hamnet. And I said, I edited the sound together. And he said, gosh, there were a lot of aeroplanes, weren't there? That was the thing that he said.
Well, we were very surprised everywhere we went anyway. But yeah, just going back to that, we always try to, we'll always do, obviously we did start without lav mics, but we obviously ended up using those. It was an artistic decision from Chloe, which is I totally respected. But of course, given the real world, it becomes very difficult to do that. And so, we have to throw everything at it. But also what we try and do is double boom everything. So even off lines, and make sure the actors know that we're recording every performance, so that Johnny can have a choice of a bit more than just the take. Yeah.
And what about the Globe Theater that they created the replica of? Were you around as they were building this, so you could say, hey, the wooden floor of this elevated stage, could we put some baffling underneath to help with the resonance? Were you involved at that stage and the development of that set?
I mean, I know, Rashad, this is one for you, isn't it? I mean, I went and saw it being built and was just like, wow, this looks amazing.
I'm
usually, it was the better.
Yeah, I'm usually of the, I like to keep things as natural and as real as possible. So as long as they're using wood, then it's good. Now, the problem is that when I went there, they had this big, they still had, they had this silk over the top of it, over the whole thing as a silk. Of course, they've extended the building afterwards to make it look, you can see the sort of open air. But to shoot it, we had to have a silk for the nut light to be consistent. But they put these all metal rings across these cables. So I looked up and went, okay, we need to deal with this. And it had a corrugated roof on the back of it. And I said, well, one, that's going to be ringing, ding-a-ding the whole time. So I said, we have to replace all of those with plastic ones or something. You got to, to the electrical department, which they did, of course, luckily. And which they look at you like, are you serious? I went, yes. And then, of course, the rain would be a problem. But actually, we were sort of like, it did rain like crazy where we were shooting it. But we seemed to be lucky for a lot of those days when we were actually in there. The thing I did put dampening down, or asked them to put gravel under, was his house, was Shakespeare's house, or his parents' house, because that was a floor which was meant to be stone. And I said, now what we need to do is we need to dampen it with gravel underneath it, so that you've got something at least a bit more solid. because of course then walking around on this hollow floor, which is meant to be stone, is, I don't know what you thought, Johnny, but yeah, that was a difficult one for us. You can't be like a drum, you know.
No, exactly. In fact, normally it's the classic sign of bad Foley is when they've recorded it on a floor that's supposed to be concrete but is actually resonant and wood, and it's very hard to get rid of that resonance, particularly under dialogue. So yeah, thank goodness you did that, Rashad.
and carpets. Always got to have some carpets. Chuck a load of carpets down. Yeah, and also that set we put a load of soundproofing on the outside, sound blankets, just stuff throwing at it just to try to, we were on the back lot of Elstree, so we really had to try and block out the city,
So going back to the performance at the Globe Theatre, because it's this stage and it's shot like they're actors on a stage. How did you get the booms in there? Were they wearing lavs? I loved how in the film it sounded like actors on a stage projecting, and it didn't sound like close mic'd. So how did you accomplish that?
I'll say my bit, and then Johnny can say his bit, what he used,
and then we'll talk about music.
Recordings, Rashad, you say the whole lot.
Well, basically, we did lav everybody, but we tried to, Dan, my amazing second, he basically put, so we tried to put wherever they've got hats or wigs or something, we try and put the mic up here, because that's going to give you the best sound rather than down here, which is going to give you more chesty and more boxy sound. So quite a few of the actors, these stage actors, had it there. And then, of course, when we went in close, we were just booming on the stage. So obviously with clever editing, you think, okay, how? But when we were doing for main Hamlet performance for Noah, we were booming him. I had Adam on the stage walking around with him and just, and then we had, probably not used so much. We had a lot of, we had 3-channel audience mics, and we had mics on the side of the stage.
Decatry, didn't you, at the back?
We had this sort of left, center, right, which is what I like to use. And we just moved it around according to where, I didn't want to rig it permanently, because you just have to keep moving these things according to where the camera is. So that helps with a bit of audience reaction, which they were great, the audience. And then the side, I had 2 mics permanently pointing just at the stage to try and maybe help with a bit more footfall, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, we it was a mixture of everything. And yeah, I quite enjoyed mixing that live just to see what it would sound like with a bit of the audience and a bit of the, it's wood, so it should sound good there. That's what it should sound like. So hopefully it was, yeah. So yeah, Johnny, I don't know what. To add?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Very much the idea was, it's the Globe back in Shakespeare time, so let's not have it sounding all powerful and sort of close mic rich. Absolutely wanted to feel the ambience of the space, and actually that Decatry, mount with that was we put in the rear speakers, and that's what gives you the feeling of the audience, a little bit around you, and gives you the sort of the delay on the voices, that kind of 50 millisecond slap of between the dialogue coming out the front speaker and hearing something slightly delayed in the rear is what tricks the brain into feeling like you're in that space, which I think goes a long way to why it feels like why it feels like it suits what it looks like, basically, because your head is thinking, yeah, that sounds about right. So yeah, it was just a very natural thing. The whole film, Chloe wanted to very much favor the natural recordings, and occasionally have me add some specific things, like, if you're going to put a bird song in, she was like, I know, Johnny, people like you like to put, we're outside, let's put birds all the way through this scene, and you're not going to do that here. If you want to put a bird in, you've got to ask me about a specific bird and where it goes. And so when Shakespeare leaves and goes to London and we see young Hamnet in the garden, I was allowed to put a single solitary sad sounding bird in there, for example. So the film was very much, I want to take these real recordings. You can add some specific things, and we will have Max's music, wonderfully, working on gluing all that together as well. So the Globe scene was more of that. Let's embrace the natural stuff. Yeah. Although
Excellent.
they were filming Dancing with Stars next door at Elstree. So occasionally there was the audience from that screaming through that we had to edit around. Because that audience was, completely wild, crazy fervor and hundreds of people more than in the Globe. So that bit we didn't include.
I put up we rented this industrial sound barriers, which we put up on our sort of car park side. I mean, they could have been like 5 times the height with like some containers or something behind, but we tried something. I was like, this is going to be crazy. Just people parking up, on the other stage. So yeah, there's a certain amount you can do, and then you're like, oh dear. I quite enjoyed, Johnny. There was bits where you'd put a few distant voices just outside in the Globe.
Yeah, which were from the Dancing with the Stars set, but obviously IRL at the Globe, you would be able to hear people walking on the
exactly.
river.
I was thinking that it was going to be more by the river or anything, some sound from that. But yeah, you heard
just
a few bits of working. Yeah.
So Max, you've been awfully quiet. Let's talk about the music for a second. So, of course, these are incredible performances. Again, very strong emotions throughout this film. And you don't want to lead the audience with the score, kind of hit them over the head with, saccharine cues. So can you talk about treading that line? Because I think you did it so beautifully, where you're supporting the heartbreak and the despair, but you're not going over the edge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think with this material, it was sort of obvious that the key danger was sentimentality. And doing kind of one-to-one, whatever, was going on in the psychology. So we wanted to avoid that. So I wanted to sort of put together a musical palette which could just be transparent to the psychology of the story and to the kind of the broader themes. And at the same time, I felt like I wanted us to be experiencing the world of the film via the prism of Agnes's perception, Agnes's way of seeing and way of being in the world. So everything's focused on kind of her psyche. There are some, there's some big themes, obviously, the family, grief, but principally, I think, motherhood. Motherhood in sort of every sense. Of course, Agnes has children, but also motherhood in the sense of connection, beyond the family into, Mother Nature, you might say, and the relationship with, interpersonal relationships, obviously, but also the relationship with the things we don't know, with, the beyond, the undiscovered country, all of that. And I think those dynamics were really the things that sort of guided the way the music developed. I made sketches right at the beginning of the process, just off the page. And I sent over to Chloe about half an hour of music, just to have something to talk about, really. And those found their way into, I think, quite a lot of the kind of early production process, in terms of they were scouting locations, playing the music, rehearsing, playing the music, all of this kind of thing. So there was a really nice kind of organic feedback loop between the musical material and the gestation, I guess, of this, of the whole project. And those things also found their way into the edit, the first edit Chloe did. And then we just kind of, developed them in parallel with the pictures as we went along. It was very...
And as Chloe... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it was a very easygoing, kind of organic, conversational process. Really ideal process, I would say. It's amazing. Chloe's an amazing collaborator. Absolutely amazing.
And so as she's doing her first edit, she's working with the music that you had. And Johnny, were you involved at that point as well? Or when did you kind of come onto this film?
I was, yeah. Just in terms of removing aeroplanes significantly. And but also thematically exploring how wind was going to work and how nature would work alongside that. But so yeah, the kind of first draft of the film had a lot of ideas in it that, you know, some of which made it through to the final thing. But absolutely, musically it was incredible at that point anyway. So yeah.
And you were talking about tonal winds as a way of showing that connection between Agnes and nature. So, of course, those tonal winds, if they're playing with music, they have to play nicely. So I'm sure there was some collaboration between you and Max.
I did my best to make them play nicely. I hope that wasn't offended by my attempts.
Very well behaved. Very well. Yeah.
The scene where Agnes goes to give birth in the forest, Chloe said, you know, have a go at trying something with this and make her connection with nature and how, you know, the forest breathes with her. So I explored an idea of using wind and how wind can have various pitches in it, and you can accentuate those and coax out a sense of emotion through chord structure and musicality in ambient sort of scatological sound that varies and doesn't stick to any particular format. But anyway, I found that editing these and shaping them to Jessie's movement and performance throughout the childbirth and her breath gave quite an interesting, I suppose, example of how the forest might work with her at this fundamental moment in her life.
Yeah, I think that scene's amazing. Actually, the way that all comes together, it's really extraordinary.
Yeah, the the first draft, it's actually very, very much what the first draft was, except there was some concern that it occasionally became a bit too horror show like because it was so strident. So we put a lot of bird song, a lot of the odd occasional sort of rather jolly bird in there to make sure that this was not that was the first feedback I got, and thought, wow, but childbirth is pretty kind of full on, isn't it? So anyway, but yeah, wins and but for the most part, you know, the backgrounds are there, occasionally having a sense of tone to them, but always to kind of retreat and give way to a wonderful piece of music, as in, you know, the Orpheus and Eurydice story near the beginning of the film.
Yeah, which really sucks you in. That's so well done.
You didn't say it really sucks. Gosh.
No, that really sucks you in. You just get so pulled into the story, and the sound there is just so delicate that it just supports what he's saying so well, and you just kind of lose yourself in that moment. Which
Max, the first time I heard your score there, my jaw hit the floor. It's incredible.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a lovely moment in the film, isn't it? And it's, you know,
there's something the boy's good at telling stories, and she loves him. It's like
right, exactly. But there's something about somebody telling a story, which, you know, it's like, oh, he's telling a story, you know, and we just kind of lean forward a bit, you know, immediately. And he does it so beautifully, and wonderful acting from the guys.
Well, I remember when we were doing that, I was listening, obviously, intensely, and then thinking, oh no, I need to actually think about other things rather than just listening to Paul, you know. But I also then I thought, of course, it's Shakespeare telling a story. You know what I mean? And suddenly it hits you, and you think, wow,
he's quite good at that, isn't he?
Yeah, it's such a great Paul. Yeah, I mean, both of them obviously. It's just, you know, fantastic. But at that moment, you just think he's telling a story to an audience of one, but we are also
exactly
listening, so we all like yeah.
Everyone forgot they were working at that moment, you know, from production through mixing. You're just captivated.
I had that experience a lot working on it, actually, just sitting there and finding myself watching a film rather than sitting in a room in London to work on it.
So these tonal wind sounds, were you using something like sound particles or Kima to kind of manipulate them and make them do what you want? Or was this a lot of just looking for the right sounds and editing and maybe some gentle pitch shifting? How far did you go with it?
Neither of those things is. So wind can often be quite a broad spectrum sound, like a white noise, a wall of, it has all frequencies, low, middle, and if you, and a frequency of sound is also a musical pitch, like 440 hertz is an A note, for example, I think. And if you put a really sharp EQ spike in at that point and dial it really hard, then you'll get something that goes and start to kind of come from noise to sing. So it's just finding, and if you then turn the sharp spike back down so that you only get a musical note occasionally when the wind naturally happens to fluctuate to that point, then you get an interesting fragility to it. So it becomes ephemeral and is there and isn't. So yeah, it's basically poking holes in noisy stuff to coax out a bit of musicality or tonality anyway.
So Johnnie, I know you like to edit and mix and refine the film continuously throughout your process. Like there's no editorial phase and then final mix phase. You're kind of doing everything all the time as you're handling this film. What were some of the things that you discovered throughout that process of how to use sound to tell this story?
I mean, that's the only way I know that is a lot of people will wait to the end to kind of mix it, but I tend to work in a room at cinema level and always be placing pieces into the tessellation in order to get the final mix working from the beginning. What did I discover? I discovered that Chloe didn't like me to put any sound on that wasn't either naturally hers or specifically there for a very good reason. And so yeah, the authorship of every sound was fundamental to the project. She kept saying, why are you putting noise in? And that would be maybe if I put a room tone in, to ostensibly often to kind of mask the dialogue, where we poked holes in the aeroplanes or things like that. That what we weren't allowed to do that, but if there was a reason to suggest that there was wind, battering at the sides of the house like a thought that you couldn't get rid of in the middle of the night, then that was a good thing, and we would attempt to put that. So I think, what am I saying? I learned that everything had to have a very good reason for being there in this film, because essentially there isn't a lot of sound, and so what there is becomes much more, under the microscope.
Yeah, and the backgrounds are so handcrafted. Like when William meets Agnes for the first time, you hear all the stuff in the world. Like there's like rooster crows in the background. There's dogs. There's birds. There's wind, and you hear this vibrant world.
Forms of application I had to put to Mrs. Zhao to apply to have all these additional sounds thrown in. It's incredible. The other thing I learned was how much I loved your music, Max, and the mix that your guys turned over to us. I've never had stems that came in, Dolby Atmos format of like normally a composer may deliver, a wide spread of or a 5.1, but these all came in. Was it 712 or 914? I can't remember.
712.
712, yeah. So fully mixed with even the roof included in the in the fold down. So it's good.
Yeah, no, I've got to say I love working in these sort of immersive formats, because I just feel that in a way they reflect a much better reality of how we experience hearing and listening. I mean, I remember the first time, because we have an Atmos room at my place, and I remember the first time hearing stuff playing back in there, and I'm just like, well, this is kind of what it's meant to be like. And it's wonderful to be able to work, in that medium, really from the beginning, from the composition stage, so that there's a real continuity in terms of how the kind of sonic dimensions of the music develop. And I think it really helps with the storytelling.
Yeah, because you recorded it in that format, didn't you? So the kind of time delays of everything, how you hear it is accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So just one last question here. That's all we have time for. If you had to pick a scene or a cue that best represents your work on the sound of Hamnet, what would it be? Rashad, let's start with you in production sound.
Oh dear. I mean, the forest to me was, like I said, the early scenes where we did, certainly with him telling the story and the birthing scenes. Really, that was just sort of those are the bits I had the most connection with, because to me that is that was what Jesse or Agnes was around was the nature. So yeah. But I love being in the Globe. That was fantastic as well. But I would pick the woods definitely. Yeah.
And
for
Max?
me,
sorry, Johnny, go ahead.
I was just going to say a quick one. I loved following William down the riverbank of the Thames with a little yappy dog in London. I was particularly pleased with that little yappy dog's bark.
Yeah, he did well, didn't he? I noticed him last night, and I thought, yeah, he's doing really well, that little dog. Yeah.
He is. He's good. Yeah, he's piping up.
And Max?
Yeah, for me, there's a sequence. So this is when Hamlet has just died, and he's in this kind of bardo state, this sort of in-between world state. He's in the dark theatre. And there's an incredible sequence. I think it's the most miraculous bit of filmmaking from Chloe, where he sort of remembers this little ritual for the dead hawk previously, and he connects up into the hawk in the sky, and then you see the hawk in the sky, and this sort of interdimensional portal opens, and he sees Will. We see Will looking at a hawk, and they're connected by this tiny thin thread of choral music, which it's just like, it's not kind of a big cue, and it's not sort of a flashy cue, but I just love it, that moment. It's just, the acting is just so astounding, and I think it's kind of a miracle of filmmaking.
Mm.
And the music there is as delicate as their connection is.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Rashad, Johnny, Max, thank you guys so much for talking about Hamnet with me, and best of luck to you all this award season.
Thank you so much. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you.